The money game. How passive income took me from broke to millionaire in my 20s. What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to The Money Game, the only place on the internet where we cut through the noise and talk about money the way it actually works in the real world. No sugarcoating, no fluff, no get-rich-quick promises from someone renting a Lamborghini for the afternoon. Just real, raw, honest information that can genuinely change the direction of your financial life. If you're willing to listen and, more importantly, willing to act. Today's video is different. This isn't a list of tips. This isn't a breakdown of an investment strategy. This is a real story, a full, unfiltered account of how one person went from being a broke teenager working a dead-end 9-to-5 job in a small town to becoming a self-made millionaire in his 20s through the power of passive income. Every mistake included, every setback, every failure, every moment where quitting seemed like the only rational option. It's all in here. Because here's the truth. You learn more from honest failure than from curated success. The highlight reel teaches you what the destination looks like. The unfiltered story teaches you how to actually get there. And I want to be clear about something before we dive in. This story starts from zero. No trust fund, no rich relatives, no college degree, no connections, no safety net. Just a young person with an idea, a fire in the belly, and the absolute refusal to accept that the life they were born into is a life they were stuck with. If that sounds like anyone you know, maybe someone you see in the mirror every morning, then keep watching. And at the very end, there's a detail about a simple desk that ties the whole story together. And I promise you, it will hit different once you understand the full context. So do not skip ahead. Watch this all the way through, because every section builds on the last. Let's go. The teenage years, where it all started. Picture a 16-year-old kid, tall and lanky, bright red hair, pockets completely empty, now a little short on cash, but genuinely bone deep broke. And yet, even at 16, there was this fire burning, this absolute knowing that the world had more to offer, and that sitting in a classroom learning things that felt completely disconnected from real life was not the path to finding it. So school was left behind, not impulsively, but deliberately, because the most important lessons were going to come from the real world, not a textbook. But before we get to that chapter, the teenage years matter, because this is where the financial foundation was secretly being laid. As a kid, there was always an obsession with making money. The first side hustle, selling candy and cans of soda to other kids in the school playground. Classic, almost cliche, but it worked. Real supply and demand, in real time with real customers. On weekends, the operation expanded to fishing, catching hundreds of mackerel and selling them door to door through the neighborhood. And this is where the first real, painful business lesson arrived. The initial offer was 10 fish for $1. Sounds like a deal, but nobody wanted 10 fish. What is the average family going to do with 10 mackerel? It felt like a burden, not a bargain. So it was back to the drawing board. New offer, 5 fish for $1. Half the quantity, same price per unit. And suddenly every door that had been slammed was opening. Lines were forming. The product hadn't changed. What changed was the packaging, the portion, the psychological accessibility of the offer. That is a lesson consumer brands still pay consultants hundreds of thousands of dollars to figure out. And it was learned at 14, going door to door with a bucket of fish. Here's the takeaway. Sales skills and confidence are the two most transferable, most valuable skills you can develop as a young person. Every business, every negotiation, every opportunity in your life will require you to communicate value and get people to say yes. Start developing those skills now. Today, not someday, today. The 9-to-5 trap. So school was behind us. The teenage hustle years had laid some critical groundwork. And now came the chapter that is going to feel painfully familiar to a lot of people watching this right now. A real job was needed. A proper skill. The path that 12 years of education had been pointing toward. Show up at 9, leave at 5, collect a paycheck, repeat. 5 job opportunities came up simultaneously. Builder, electrician, refrigeration engineer, retail shop assistant, or carpenter's apprentice. After careful thought, carpentry won. The pay was around $2 an hour. Not exactly a path to freedom, but it was about building a skill, getting a foothold, working up, and for a while it worked. Real effort was poured in. Leadership awards were won. There was genuine momentum. Then the manager happened. Here's what nobody tells you about working for someone else. Your career, your income, your daily experience of your own professional life is entirely at the mercy of one person's mood and ego. One manager who feels threatened by your competence can derail years of progress with a single assignment. The assignment? Making wooden trash cans. Day after day, week after week, month after month, in the back of the workshop, invisible, unable to show any of the skills that have been worked so hard to develop. And here's the brutal math. The pay was just enough to cover the bills, not a dollar more, which means you can't quit because you need the money, but you also can't save or get ahead because there's nothing left over, locked in, financially trapped in a job you hate, doing work so repetitive and mindless that you feel yourself losing your edge day by day. Sound familiar? Because right now in America, millions of people are in exactly the situation. Overqualified for what they're doing, underpaid for what they're worth, and completely unable to see an exit because the financial margin to take a risk simply doesn't exist. The conversation with the manager was direct. I need more of a challenge. I can't keep making trash cans. And the response, burned into memory forever. You're making these bins today, you'll be making them tomorrow. We've got a 5-year contract. You're going to be making a lot of these bins. That moment was the moment of clarity. Working for someone else means you have zero power. Your effort doesn't determine your outcome. The person above you determines everything. And that realization planted the seed that would eventually change everything. Building the escape. Side hustles and emergency fund. So the 9-to-5 wasn't going away immediately. You can't just quit when the paycheck is the only thing standing between you and the landlord. But what you can do is build something on the side. And that's exactly what happened. Side hustle 1. A Saturday job at a radio control model shop. Niche? Specialized retail. Hours were worked, products studied, customer behavior observed. Mental notes taken constantly. What was working, what wasn't, what gaps the owner was completely blind to. Side hustle 2. Flipping cars. Finding underpriced used vehicles. Cleaning them up and selling them for a profit. Buying cars for $200 to $300 and flipping them for $500 to $600. Modest margins, but the negotiation and marketing skills being built were worth far more. Side hustle 3. Teaching people to fly radio-controlled helicopters on Sundays. Huge demand at the time. Every Sunday fully booked, weather permitting. 3 income streams running simultaneously alongside the full-time job. Here's why this matters beyond the extra cash. Having multiple income streams meant that, finally, an emergency fund could be built. And that emergency fund is not just a financial cushion. It is freedom. Real, tangible freedom. Because the most paralyzing financial state you can be in is living paycheck to paycheck. When you're one missed payment away from not making rent, your entire brain is consumed by short-term survival. You literally cannot think about the future. Every opportunity that requires any risk gets automatically dismissed because there's no margin for error. The opportunity cost of that trap in America is enormous and almost entirely invisible. Businesses never started, assets never bought, career pivots never made. The emergency fund breaks that cycle. Even a small one, 3-month expenses, immediately expands your ability to say yes to things that could change your life. The dream house and the discovery of passive income. One day at work, a chance came up to help install a staircase at a customer's home. It was jumped at immediately. Anything to break the backroom monotony. And nothing could have prepared for what was inside that door. This house was everything. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a private swimming pool, a garage full of sports cars. It was like walking onto a movie set, except a real person actually lived there. And immediately the math started. How many years of working would it take to afford something like this? The calculation kept getting more demoralizing. Even with the main job and all 3 side hustles running, the gap felt almost infinite. So close, because it was real, because another human being had achieved it, and impossibly far at the same time. But then came the conversation. Because the owner of that house kept appearing in the garden throughout the day, going for a swim, heading out to play golf, relaxing whenever he pleased, not working, not chained to a schedule, just free. And the question finally had to be asked, how? His answer was simple, but it landed like a thunderbolt. His business made money while he slept. He had built systems, a company, investments, income streams that generated revenue independent of his physical presence. He wasn't trading hours for dollars. His money was working for him, around the clock. This was the first real introduction to passive income. And it was mind-bending because everything school had ever taught pointed in a completely different direction. The entire educational system prepares students for one outcome: get a job, show up, trade your time for money, retire in your 60s. The concept of building systems that generate income independently is simply not in the curriculum. But this man was living proof it was real. Now, a necessary clarification. The term passive income has been so distorted by internet marketing culture that it barely means anything anymore. Real passive income is not easy. It requires enormous upfront work, building the business, creating the product, establishing the customer base, putting in the sleepless nights. The passive part comes after the foundation is laid. Anyone selling you passive income with no effort required is selling you a fantasy. The real definition: you do the work once, build the system, and then that system continues to generate income with less and less of your direct involvement over time. It is the destination. Intense, focused, active effort is the journey to get there. The plan, the betrayal, and the comeback. Armed with this new understanding, a real escape plan was built. The foundation rested on two non-negotiable principles: industry familiarity and genuine passion. Familiarity because you need to understand your market before you try to compete in it. Passion because building a business is brutally hard, and on the days when everything is going wrong simultaneously, passion is the only fuel that keeps you moving. The Saturday job at the model shop had been the perfect research lab for years. Every gap in the market had been observed, every mistake cataloged. A location was identified, a concept developed, a name chosen: Model World, a business that would eventually run profitably without requiring constant presence. True passive income, built one customer at a time. One friend was trusted with the entire plan, every detail. The location, the name, the product strategy, everything. Big mistake. That friend opened the shop himself. Same name, same concept, same location. All of it gone. Let's sit with that. Imagine working for years towards something, building it brick by brick in your mind, finally having a plan solid enough to execute, and then watching someone you completely trusted walk off with it and live your dream in front of you. The devastation is hard to overstate. It wasn't just a lost business opportunity. It was the entire future that had been mentally constructed, crashing down, like a sprinter fully trained and ready, but chained to the starting blocks, unable to release any of that pent-up energy while the race happens without you. And the dangerous thoughts started creeping in. Maybe entrepreneurship isn't for me. Do not listen to that voice. That voice is fear dressed as wisdom and has killed more dreams than any external obstacle ever has. Here's a practical lesson. If you have a great idea, protect it. Operate in the shadows until you're ready to launch. Share pieces of your plan with different people if you need feedback, but never give a complete picture to anyone not directly building it with you. This is not cynicism. It is wisdom earned the hard way. After the betrayal, there was only one option: grind harder. Every available hour worked, every spare dollar saved, a first apartment purchased, not just as a place to live, but as a deliberate move to build a credit score. Because in America, your credit score is not just a number. It is leverage. It determines whether a bank will lend you money, at what rate, on what terms. Building it early and deliberately, through responsible credit use and on-time payments, is one of the highest leverage moves a young person can make. It costs nothing but discipline and pays dividends for decades. Then, as if the universe had been watching for readiness to be demonstrated, news came that the friend wanted to sell Model World. His passion was never really there. The shop had enormous potential, but was being neglected. This was the moment, the one all the grinding and saving had been preparing for. The only problem? The money wasn't close to enough, but the credit score was solid. So capital was leveraged, walk into a bank, make the case for a business loan. The first bank said no in 10 minutes. Flat rejection. Walking out with head down. Everything feeling impossible again. So close, yet so far. Just like that dream house. But instead of going home, the next building along the street happened to be another bank. The door was walked through. A meeting requested right then. No appointment. The manager listened and said yes. Not just yes to the loan, but yes as a future customer. He later said he saw someone young, passionate, and hardworking and couldn't say no. This is a principle. Preparation plus persistence creates the conditions where luck can find you. You cannot control when opportunity arrives, but you can control how prepared you are and how many doors you knock on before giving up. Model World was purchased. The name, the stock, everything. Finally real. Building the machine and nearly losing it all. The first day the doors opened, there was a sleeping bag behind the counter, not as decoration, as a genuine plan B. Because if sales weren't strong enough to cover gas money for the drive home, that was where the night would be spent. That's how tight the margins were. But every skill built over the previous years converged on that first day, and it was a success. After 3 years, the business turned over $1 million. The kid who had been making wooden trash cans for $2 an hour had built $1 million business, starting from nothing but a bank loan and an absolute refusal to quit. After 10 years, there were multiple locations, a warehouse, millions in revenue, and genuine freedom. The passive income machine was running, and then complacency crept in. When things are going amazingly well, when money is flowing, the business runs smoothly. Life feels easy. It becomes dangerously tempting to take your foot off the gas, to stop innovating, to stop looking around corners for the next threat, to assume that what works today will work tomorrow. This is a complacency trap, and it has ended more businesses in recessions, bad products, and aggressive competition combined. The moment you start feeling invincible is exactly the moment you are most vulnerable. The business was almost entirely built around a single revenue stream, physical retail. Then the internet happened. Amazon, eBay, online shopping. The entire retail landscape transformed, seemingly overnight. Businesses that had thrived for decades were getting wiped out in months. And because focus had been on riding the existing wave rather than watching the horizon for what was coming, the disruption arrived faster than expected. The critical, business-saving difference. Early investments in the stock market and real estate, assets completely separate from the retail operation, provided a financial buffer that most competitors didn't have. That diversification was the only thing that prevented a complete financial collapse. This is the non-negotiable importance of diversification. Your income, your savings, your investments, they should never all live in one bucket. Not one employer, not one business, not one asset class. Diversification is not just an investment strategy. It is a survival strategy. The pivot, going global. Faced with a choice between sinking and swimming, the decision was made: adapt aggressively. Here's the mindset shift that made all the difference. The internet was not the enemy. It was the opportunity. The same force destroying the local retail model was simultaneously creating the ability to reach customers globally, 24 hours a day, while completely asleep. That is passive income at a scale simply impossible before the internet era. So instead of opening more physical stores, the strategy shifted to a centralized warehouse operation capable of serving customers anywhere in the world. And to protect against another single-stream disruption, a completely new income stream was built. A business-to-business channel, selling to other retailers and companies rather than directly to consumers. A different revenue stream, not correlated with the consumer retail market. This idea led to a spontaneous, completely unplanned trip to California to visit a contact with a similar business. No hotel booked, no driver's license packed. Yes, really. Landing at LAX without a license forced a detour to the most questionable car rental operation imaginable, where a barely functional Dodge Dynasty was the only option available. That car was then driven all the way up the Pacific Coast Highway, through Malibu, Santa Barbara, Big Sur, up to San Francisco, and down to Milpitas, near San Jose. Every hotel in the city was booked for a convention. The only room available was in a motel, so concerning that nobody got undressed. The night was spent on top of the bed, fully clothed, ready to move if necessary. Not exactly the glamorous entrepreneur lifestyle, but the meeting, showing up completely unannounced, knocking on the door. Say essentially, I was just passing through, created a genuine human connection that no email ever could. A business arrangement was made, a product stocking agreement established, a new income stream born. That connection led directly to the next step. Traveling to Shanghai, China to find manufacturing partners for a proprietary product line, armed with a visa and a handful of faxes in Chinese characters that were impossible to read. Literally handing the paper to the taxi driver and hoping for the best, that first China trip happened. New contacts were made, factories visited, supply chains established. Here's the lesson from all of that travel. In-person relationships create a quality of connection that digital communication cannot replicate. When you sit across from someone, share a meal, look them in the eye, you build trust that lasts decades. If you have an opportunity to meet a potential partner or supplier in person, take it. Every time. The final lessons. So that's the arc. From a broke 16-year-old with no qualifications and no connections, to a self-made millionaire with multiple passive income streams spanning retail, investments, real estate, international supply chains, and e-commerce. Not a straight line. Not a fairy tale. A real messy, sometimes devastating, ultimately triumphant journey. What are the real takeaways? Let's make them concrete, because a story without actionable lessons is just entertainment. Number 1. The path to passive income requires massive active effort front. The passive part comes after the systems are built, after the customers are there, after the business has momentum. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling you something. Probably a $997 course filmed in front of a rented sports car. Number 2, diversification is survival. Never build your entire financial life on one income stream, one business, or one asset class. The internet disruption proved that painfully. Investments in stocks and real estate outside the core business were the only reason there was no bankruptcy. Build multiple streams. Always, even when the primary one is thriving. Number 3, sales skills and confidence compound over a lifetime. Not your degree, not your connections. Your ability to communicate value and build genuine relationships with people, whether you're pitching a bank, closing a client, or negotiating with a supplier in another country. Everything comes down to how well you can connect with another human and get them to say yes. Develop these skills relentlessly. Number 4, betrayal and setback are not signs to stop. They are invitations to get smarter and build stronger. Every no from a bank, every stolen idea, every soul-crushing backroom assignment is fuel. If you decide to treat it that way, the friend who stole the business idea taught an invaluable lesson about protecting your plans. The bank that rejected the loan in 10 minutes forced to walk to the next bank, which said yes and changed everything. The setback was a setup. Number 5, the emergency fund is not optional. It is the foundation of everything. Without financial runway, without that buffer between you and desperation, you cannot take the calculated risks that build real wealth. 3 to 6 months of expenses in liquid savings is not conservative. It is the minimum platform from which real opportunity can be pursued. Number 6, your credit score is a strategic tool. Build it deliberately, early, and consistently. In America, it unlocks capital, and capital, deployed intelligently, multiplies your ability to build wealth by an order of magnitude. The bank loan that bought Model World was only possible because of years of deliberate credit building. Your future self will thank you. Number 7, the barriers to entry have never been lower in the history of entrepreneurship. You do not need family connections. You do not need an Ivy League degree. You do not need inherited wealth. You need a skill or a product, a laptop, an internet connection, and the discipline to show up consistently. Everything else, information, tools, platforms, global supply chains, payment processing, marketing channels, is accessible to anyone right now, today, and the desk. Years ago, there was an interview, sitting across from a boss in his office, hoping to earn a $2 an hour job making trash cans. That company eventually went bankrupt. Their assets went to auction. And that very desk, the boss's desk, the symbol of everything that once felt impossibly out of reach, was purchased at that auction. It sits in the office today. It is a daily reminder that the outcome of your life is not determined by your starting position. It is determined by your choices, your persistence, your willingness to learn from failure, and your refusal to accept the limitations other people try to place on you. Your desk is out there waiting for you. If this story resonated, if it made you think differently about what is possible for your life, share this video right now with someone who needs to hear it. A friend stuck in a job they hate. A younger sibling trying to figure out their path. A co-worker who's been talking about starting a business for years, but keeps finding reasons to wait. This information can genuinely change a life, but only if it reaches the right people. You sharing it matters more than you think. Subscribe to The Money Game right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video like this. Every week we bring you real, honest, actionable content on building wealth. No fluff, no hype, just the truth. Drop a comment below. Tell us, what is the one idea from this story that hit you the hardest? And what specific action are you taking differently starting today? We read every single comment, and your story might end up inspiring the next video. And remember, every single person you see living your dream started exactly where you are right now. Welcome to The Money Game. Now go build something.